Super Bowl special. The season culminates. And Eagles. I got Matt and Rob here. Matt, how you feeling, man? Your Eagles playing for a Super Bowl. How do you feel, man?
I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling happy. It's great to be a part of Super Bowl week, especially the second time in 5 years. And, just going through Super Bowl week, seeing all the media, it gets you excited. It's two great teams, a lot riding on the line, obviously. And, you got some good stories. You got Mahomes versus Hurts, and you got the Kelsey brothers, and you got Andy Reid playing the Eagles in the Super Bowl, a team that he coached for 14 seasons. So it's going to be an exciting Super Bowl Sunday. And I can't wait till Sunday morning when it starts.
Rob, what do you think about this weekend? I know you were a Super Bowl prediction did not quite. Honestly, man, that crazy Brock Purdy and the Bengals for you, but you certainly were on season. I guess we can start there.
I'm good, man. Thanks for asking. I was 0 for 2 on that Super Bowl pick. I like to believe that it would have been a closer game had Brock Purdy not gone down, but honestly, the Eagles just controlled that game from the beginning. And before he was even injured, they put up 7, and it just felt like all the momentum was going to Philly. So not sure that the Niners would have won that game had Purdy been healthy, but the Eagles look fantastic, good as they've looked all year. And if they can carry that same mentality, same play into the Super Bowl, they're going to be tough to beat. But then on the flip side, you got Mahomes, who you can never count out. So I honestly have been thinking about this game a lot, and I just don't know what's going to happen. It's hard for me to pick a winner. I don't like going against Mahomes, but I also have had no success going against the Eagles in all my picks. So it's going to be a great one. I think we're in for a really good one. Obviously, 2 number 1 seeds. This is what people want to see. And I think this is what the NFL wanted to see. There's a lot of storylines, a lot of interesting little things going on behind the scenes that can be impacted by this game. So certainly a Super Bowl that will be remembered, I believe.
I think it's going to be a fantastic matchup. Matt and I a little bit, just you always want it to be a good game. You don't want something like that Pats Rams game that was, I believe, 10-3 a couple years ago, or like a complete blowout like happened between Chiefs Bucks even a few years ago. See that? It's hard to envision that. I think we say that almost every year, but it really is hard to envision reasons. The first one being Patrick Mahomes. It's just as good as he's been, and honestly, I think this is probably the best defense he's had. That we're coming into the playoffs. Talk about how talented several of these rosters were, especially in the Final Four. But one thing that was the Chiefs. Also, I do think it's been so that paired with just Mahomes being the best quarterback in the league right now, going up against the Eagles, who have a top 2, top 3 roster in this league, and Jalen Hurts playing as a top 5 quarterback this season, in contention for MVP at some points if it weren't for that injury. I can't imagine this being a blowout. Rob, can you see either one of these teams having the game get away from them? Matt mentioned if there is a blowout, it's probably the Eagles blowing them out just because of the depth of the roster. I know he's got some bias there, but I tend to agree with him just because of the depth and the talent that they have there. The pass rush has been unbelievable in the playoffs. At the end of the day, just give me your gut feeling. You might not know who's going to win this game, but gut feeling, could you see this hand for either team?
I completely agree with Matt and you, Cody. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but if it is, I think the Eagles are going to take that. Like you said, they're just too deep. They're really hot right now. They've blown out the Giants, blown out the Niners. If that's the storyline that's going to happen, it's going to happen. But I don't think it's going to be, because I don't really remember a time that Mahomes has been blown out, and I can't see him being blown out. I think he's too good. I think that team is too good. I think Andy Reid is too good to count them out at any point in the game. Even if the Eagles go up 14 or something like that, I still would not count the Chiefs out depending on the time. So that's why I think it's going to be a special game. I feel like the consensus is on the Eagles. I feel like a lot of people are feeling that Philly is the favorite, whether they're the favorite on the line or not. And I understand that just based on the playoffs and how it's gone and how the whole season's gone. I don't think there's going to be any restriction to Mahomes as far as injury. So I think a healthy Mahomes makes for an incredible game. I am really excited about it. I kind of was, as a Joe Burrow Bengals fan, like I was bummed to see that that the Bengals lost. So I didn't have too much interest in this game, but now just looking at all the storylines, looking at everything going on, looking how good both of these teams are, I don't know how you can't be excited about this one. So I think it's again, I'm gonna sound like a broken record by the end of this podcast, but it's gonna be a really good game. I just feel that in my gut. I don't think you're gonna see one of those low scoring games. I just think it's gonna be a grinded out win by two quarterbacks that all they seem to do is grind out wins. So we'll see where the chips fall.
Let's go ahead and match over Matt, for those who maybe don't know, Podcast Network done a great job this season, and he's brought some luck to the Eagles by joining the Rush Drive Network, because he just, as we head into this match, talk specifically about this line getting pressure on Patrick Mahomes. They just been great all year, and in the playoffs, I think you've been even better. So give me your thoughts. This defensive line, specific you've seen, or just they've really and kind of how up against getting pressure against Mahomes, and then kind of want you to transition to the other side of the trenches and offensive line going up against the likes of Chris Jones and a defensive line that before I toss it over to you was the Chiefs number one defensively in expected points added. They were dead last in the league. Pressure Burrow. However, challenge that they're going the Eagles front certainly different. So I want you to kind of talk first, seeing what you expect, and then flip it over on what I think will be a bigger challenge for you guys in handling the pressure created.
Well, absolutely. And the last time you could even say that Mahomes was relatively blown out was the Super Bowl against Tom Brady, where Todd Bowles and that defensive line really got after him and made him scramble a lot and outside the pocket. Their offensive line was definitely a lot worse than it is this year, but they're going up against the best defensive line in football. And even it really says something about the depth of this Eagles defensive line, just because that guys over 10 sacks this year. They led the league in sacks. You have a guy like Brandon Graham, who is best known for strip sacking Tom Brady in the Super Bowl 52 when we won 5 years ago, and he's playing only 43% of the snaps for this defense right now, and he recorded 11 sacks. They're also the best on third and long. So third and long, which is mostly 3rd and 8 or more, they have an 18.3% sack rate, and they host the 6-point lowest QBR against the offense. You have to win in the trenches when you get this late in the season. You have to win on third down and get the opponent off of the field on third down. But also on the offensive side of the ball, you have to convert on third down and convert your red zone trips. But the defensive line has just been playing absolutely stellar all postseason long. You have Hassan Reddick, who's playing at an all-time high. Arguably could be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. Nothing against, obviously, Nick Bosa, who's probably going to run away with it, and Mekhi Parsons, who plays for the Cowboys. But Hassan Reddick has been a difference maker for this defense, and what a pickup by Howie Roseman in the offseason. The defensive line going up against Orlando Brown and Wiley, who's the right tackle. I think that they're going to create enough pressure. They're definitely going to try and test Mahomes early, especially with that ankle, to see what he can do. But, going off of those stats before, they're going to get their shots. They're going to make him uncomfortable. And the problem is it's just Patrick Mahomes. He's going to make the plays. He's going to, you're going to get guys wide open. It's just it's just going against the Chiefs that they get people open so many times, especially when Mahomes is kind of scrambling, and Mahomes does it the best. So that's going to be a tough time kind of keeping him contained, but you're going to have to try and get after him early. Going over to the other side of the ball for us with the defensive line and against Chris Jones leading that Chiefs defensive line. I mean, what has to be said about Jason Kelce, Lane Johnson, Mailata, Dickerson, and Sayamalu? I mean, they haven't allowed a sack all postseason. I understand we were going up against the Giants, but Lane Johnson made Nick Bosa absolutely undetectable on that game in the championship game. I know that there was a lot going against the Niners. You know, whether it was the QB, whether it was Purdy going down, they tried to stay in it. They stayed in it for a little bit, and in the beginning, even if those things didn't really go their way, if they weren't having all those flags and Purdy going down, I mean, you can make an argument that the Niners could have been up 7-0 at half. But that offensive line has done a great job. Chris Jones is Chris Jones. He's one of the best defensive linemen in football. He's going to get pressure. He's going to get through, but it's going to be up to Jordan Mailata, Kelce, and Lane Johnson to kind of hold that offensive line together and keep Jalen Hurts within the pocket. Just a couple of stats for you. When Jalen Hurts is in the pocket, he has a third best QBR in the league at 68.5, and he has his best completion percentage at 69% when he gets his throws out between 2 and 4 seconds within that pocket, and it's an 85.2 QBR. I know that, you know, yeah, of course, if every quarterback didn't get pressured and stood in the pocket and deliver the ball with no problems, they're going to post those type of stats. But it just goes to show how much Jalen Hurts has come since last year and with his accuracy. It's really going to be up to Jalen Hurts. I do believe that he's going to have to post at least between 200 and 300 passing yards in this game to win. I understand that our run game can keep Mahomes off the field, but we've all seen it before. This offense that the Chiefs have can score way too quick. And it might not be about time of possession in this game, because if you give Mahomes a lick of time, he's going to make you pay. But as long as they keep doing what they're doing, I don't really see them losing this football game. They're obviously very confident. AJ Brown is due for a huge game. Devontae Smith as well. They haven't really been passing the ball that well. I understand that there were 2 blowouts in the postseason where they were forced to kind of run the ball in the second half and take time off the clock. But it's not going to be that type of game, especially in the atmosphere that's going to be going in Glendale, Arizona. Super Bowl week has been looking crazy down there around the Scottsdale area. And I'm excited. It's going to be a great game, and it's going to be a true test for Jalen Hurts going to get up against, you know, Patrick Mahomes and his MVP caliber quarterback play.
You're muted. You're muted. We can cut that out.
Well, we're live, so we can't totally. No, I said no. It's perfect. I got a little bit entertained, but so Matt, your X factor there. You kind of talked about him a little bit. I kind of want to focus on the Eagles, because I do think they're going to be able to get theirs just running the ball. So I do think that they've got to be able to, if they're building a lead, I think they got to, you know, it's going to be fine. That's great and all, but let's say they do fall behind. I think they're going to have to throw their way back into it. Who's your X factor there outside of Hurts? You mentioned AJ Brown. Is he the one that you think has to make a difference, or is it someone else? Is it a Goddard? Is it a Devontae Smith? Like, who has to show up? Because you got to imagine there's going to be quite a bit of attention on.
I do think AJ Brown might be the X factor. I know that you're going into Steve Spagnuolo is going into this game, and you don't want him to beat you. Of course, he's our best offensive weapon. But what Steve Spagnuolo likes to do is he likes to have his safeties blitz and corners blitz, and have kind of sometimes Chris Jones drop as he's pretending to rush. So that might leave your options on the outside 1v1. And if you have AJ Brown or Devontae Smith lined up one-on-one and Hurts recognizes it, he's going to have to hit those throws. He's going to have to, you know, notice that's going on, and you take that shot 9 out of 10 times. We saw that Jalen Hurts had missed a couple of throws in those 2 postseason games. AJ Brown in the Giant game and in the Niner game on wide open go routes. That can't happen against the Chiefs, and it definitely can't happen on third down. So he's going to have to, I think AJ Brown will be the X factor, because you always want to say Goddard, because Goddard's kind of like the forgotten guy, and he controls the middle of the field, and he'll be able, whoever lines up on him is going to have a mismatch. So you would like to see them kind of go to Goddard more, but this is the biggest game of the year. You have an AJ Brown who you traded a first round pick for, paid him a bunch of money. Take AJ Brown. He's going to be the X factor on Super Bowl Sunday.
You mentioned Goddard. I think there's going to be so much focus on the edges in the run game. Obviously, they're going to focus on Goddard because he's a top 5 tight end in the league. I mean, and with so much focus being on the other, in Kelsey, I think Goddard could potentially be a bit of an X factor here. Rob, what say you with that Eagles offense? Just kind of stick with that. Like, who has to be the X factor? Who do you think will be that X factor? Kind of talk about the Eagles offense for me a little bit.
Well, I was just talking to someone the other day about, I forget who I was talking to, how good I really think Devontae Smith is. Like, he is just a phenomenal route runner. I think he makes a difference. I think so many of these teams, and you kind of saw it last week, we mentioned T. Higgins for the Bengals, how he's been quiet, and he kind of emerged last week as the number one and took a little pressure off Chase. Obviously couldn't get the job done, but that's kind of the role I see Devontae Smith playing. And they didn't need to throw a lot last week. There wasn't, receiving stats that jumped off the paper, but I think he's someone that really makes a difference. I think obviously the focus will be on AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert across the middle, but I think Devontae Smith makes a difference, and he tends to show up in these big games. I mean, you remember back to the college football playoff. I know it's a little bit bigger of a moment, but he exploded in that championship game. He just seems to thrive in the big moments. So I'll go with Devontae Smith on that one. I do think it all comes down to the quarterbacks, though, obviously. If Jalen Hurts kind of falls back into early NFL Jalen Hurts, or, the one that people doubted, I think they're going to be in trouble. I think he's obviously beyond that at this point. I think they really use him well. So I don't see that happening, but it's going to come down to these two quarterbacks, and that's the obvious answer. But you know what you're going to get out of Mahomes, and I think Jalen Hurts has to play up to that standard. He has to play up to that MVP level that he's been playing all year, just one more time to get the job done. He's going to, again, the stats from last week, you can't really look at and say anything about. He's going to have to do a little bit more than 121 yards to get the job done, and I absolutely believe he will. I think he will rise to the occasion. We talked about this last year, actually, when they played the Bucs in the playoffs, that Jalen Hurts, he's just a gamer, man. Like, he just knows how to rise to the occasion. He's super competitive. I love his demeanor. I've actually, I'm not a huge Eagles fan, but I do like me some Jalen Hurts. So I think him and Devontae Smith are the two guys that are going to have to emerge this weekend, and I honestly think they really can. I think Devontae Smith is establishing himself as a really, really solid receiver. I don't think that's something people didn't see coming. I think obviously he was a stud in college, and he's just translating that well into the NFL. So I think he'll continue to get better, continue to take steps, and I think he's going to make a difference this weekend for the Eagles. And the more we talk about it, the more I'm leaning Eagles, actually, as we go on this podcast. So I'll see where we are in a couple minutes, but I'm going to go with Devontae Smith. I think he's gonna make a difference. Big play. I mean, he made that huge play last week. I guess it wasn't technically a catch, but it went down as a catch. But
I'll take it.
Yeah, he's a big play guy. So big play guys make big plays in big games. So that's where I'm going.
Crazy stat about, actually, I think it was Tolson. The Ravens podcast tweet about the Eagles' health. I think that's one of the craziest. They're almost at full health going into the Super Bowl. I think they're only down one or two guys versus this season. Matt, I don't know if I'm way off on that or if I misread it, but I mean, just some crazy
you're
good
close.
health
You're
for
right.
Philly. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I think that's something that could potentially make us just still having that depth as well, but I think Mahomes can cover. We've seen that's one of his advantages this season has been limiting those turnover-worthy plays, not taking as many necessary risky shots, kind of playing within a little more and just kind of be more mature. I wouldn't say, just being a system. I would just say it's part of the, because I think how young he is. Really, both of these guys, but specifically Mahomes, because of the conference championship the last few years and been to a couple Super Bowls, be turned over there. He can. I think that secondary, if they can force a couple of turnovers, that could potentially be one of the key differences in this game. He does have 2.24% worthy play percentage. Hurts right there at 1.91. I think that's a pretty decent gap when you're dealing with margins that small. So I think that could be a bit of an X factor there. If he is turning the ball over, let's kind of just play that out. Say he is turning the ball over, Matt. Who's making the plays? Is it the secondary? Or is it the defensive line getting in his face? Like who's making the plays for Philly defensively if they're going to be able to force a couple of Mahomes turnovers?
Probability and stats, I want to say the defensive line, just because of the amount of pressure that they do, but I think it's going to be either Gardner Johnson or Bradbury. Unfortunately,
Okay.
I mean, Slay, I don't really know the stats on Slay. We do get a lot of picks from him, but it's more of like that no one's really throwing his way, or he has pass breakups. Gardner Johnson was leading this team with eight interceptions, and Bradbury had a couple as well. I think that they're ball hawks, and not saying that Slay isn't. It's just I don't really think he gets the opportunities to kind of show that he can get those interceptions, just because they're not really targeting his side. And they're not really targeting Bradbury's side now either, because he hosts the opposing quarterbacks to the lowest completion rate as well. But I think Gardner Johnson always kind of puts himself in position where he can make a play on the ball, and especially with the matchup against Kelsey. I think that if Avonte Maddox and his toe, and going back to the injuries that you were discussing before, it's really only Avonte Maddox with the toe. TJ Edwards was dealing with an ankle sprain, and you have Lane Johnson with the abdominal tear that he's just playing through, that he's going to need surgery in the offseason. But relatively, we are healthy. And if Maddox's toe is not really bothering him, you're going to see Maddox and Gardner Johnson kind of line up on Kelsey in the Super Bowl, just because I know that Gannon comes from a Vic Fangio style defense, where Brandon Staley, who's the Chargers head coach, kind of runs the same defense. And when the Chargers had a healthy Derwin James, who's a kind of a bigger safety that can play the slot, he's kind of versatile. Not saying that Gardner Johnson's kind of on that level right now, but he kind of hosts the same traits. When Derwin James was on Travis Kelce on single man coverage, he held him to one catch for 14 yards. When he got hurt in that game, Kelce exploded for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I think Gannon's going to try and switch them up, give Kelce a bunch of different looks, but it's also going to be Gannon's job to kind of go against Andy Reid. Andy Reid likes to put Kelce in motion a lot, and they do run the highest percentage of snaps with their offense in the motion. And Kelce has a completion rate, I think, of upward of 70% when they throw him in motion off the ball. So I mean, look, Kelce was the X factor in the Bengals game. We were discussing it as well 2 weeks ago, that if they stop Kelce, they're going to have a shot. It's going to be the same in this game. I think our corners match up against their receivers well. Unfortunately, Chiefs do not have, fortunately for us, but unfortunately for the Chiefs, that Hardman will be injured. Their big speed guy, who they like to run in motion a lot on jet sweeps. So I just don't think that Juju, Valdez-Scantling, Kadarius Toney, if he's somehow healthy and plays, they're not going to be able to stack up against Slay and Bradbury. I don't think, at least, unless Andy Reid kind of runs up certain plays for them. But I think that's going to be the two guys that you're going to watch maybe for a turnover or two. And then who knows, maybe BG comes with a strip sack at the end of the game again, and kind of, we get a little deja vu from 5 years ago. But I think it would more be of the secondary kind of forcing an inherent throw from Mahomes on pressure.
So let's talk about the Chiefs offense a little bit, Rob. I'm going to go over to you. I mean, I think Kelce is going to get his regardless of opponent. And time again, pretty much bet on acting. So let's talk about the rest of that offense. Who is going to make a play? Who is their offense? Who do they have? What are their names? Fortunately, I've got them pulled up. But you got Watson, Smith-Schuster. You got MVA. You've got Kerry.
A lot of us this week as well. So
use him. I don't know. we'll see if that actually happens, but he's healthy now as well. I know they drew some stuff up for him early in the season, but he did not get a lot of points. They were just super efficient in the plays that did draw up for him. It's really how they've used these guys. McKinnon really came along towards the end of the season. Pacheco's running the ball well. But at the end of the day, are like, they're not dudes. They're just guys. They're just guys who are playing with Mahomes and second fiddle to make a difference. Like Travis Kelce can't go for 150 yards. Well, he can, but you got to know the Eagles are going to be focusing there. Pacheco's either got a break-free run in the ball, which is going to be tough against this Eagles defensive line, or one of these receivers has to do something. Smith-Schuster has to in the slot. I mean, probably your best matchup, and Maddox is the 23rd graded corner according to PFF so far this season, with Slay, Bradbury both coming in the top 20. So it's just going to be tough. I mean, Rob, do you even know who these guys are, first of all, and can anyone make a difference besides Kelce?
I think someone's going to have to step up, and I don't foresee Valdez-Scantling going for 116 again and a touchdown. But you just never know. I mean, against those corners, especially, those corners are better than the Bengals corners. They're going to, and the pass rush is better. I mean, I actually do see, like, the more I look at it, a lot of similarities between the Bengals and the Eagles when you kind of look top down. I think the Eagles are better roster, but when you look offensively, Bengals 2 wide receiver studs, Eagles 2 wide receiver studs. Both have a good run game. Both have really good quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts a little more mobile, but Burrow can run the ball a little bit. And then on defense, Bengals have a decent pass rush. Obviously not as good as the Eagles, but the more I look at it, I feel like we're going to get a very similar game to what we saw last week or 2 weeks ago with the Chiefs and the Bengals. But yeah, it's going to have to come down to somebody making a play. And what's funny about the Super Bowl is I feel like every couple years there's just one guy that comes out of nowhere and he wins like Super Bowl MVP because he's had 10 catches or whatever it may be. Like somebody like, a Sky Moore that just comes out of nowhere and goes crazy for 2 touchdowns or something like that. But I don't know that I can fully see that happening against this defense. If it's going to happen anywhere, it's going to happen with a guy that, a team where Mahomes is throwing the ball. But I don't see anything. I don't see any Chiefs receiver outpacing Travis Kelce. So Kelce's going to have to go for a big game. That's just what it really is going to come down to. I actually do really like Pacheco. I think he runs extremely hard every time he touches the ball. It's just a matter of if he can actually get through that defensive line. So my prediction, I don't know. I mean, it's really just like a coin flip at this point. Is it going to be MVS, Pacheco? McKinnon didn't really do much at all last game, so is he going to emerge? I don't know, but I think somebody that has to be a little bit more, present or make his presence felt is Juju, because Juju's been good in past years. He was pretty decent the first half of the year this year, and then kind of fell off a little bit. Obviously struggled with some injuries here and there, but he's a solid receiver. Like he is probably a wide receiver 2 on most teams in the NFL. I think Juju could make a difference. It's just really weird. Like it's amazing to see that this roster just continues to get to the AFC Championship every year. Even without Tyreek Hill this year, they were, Mahomes was more efficient than he's ever been. So it just blows your mind, like how good Mahomes actually is, and that's why you always have to count them as contenders, and you can never count them out. Like I said earlier, there's always going to be a possibility that they score within a couple plays, and they're right back in it. So I know MVS can get over the top. Kadarius Toney's shown glimpses of good plays. I just don't. He's so inconsistent. I never know what to expect out of him. So if they can get Juju going a little bit, along with Kelce, maybe open up for a shot down the field with MVS, that's what they're going to have to do. I mean, they're going to have to get creative, and there's no one better to do that than Andy Reid. So it's going to be a really good offensive battle against a really good defensive team in the Eagles, as well as a good offensive team in the Eagles. So they kind of got the whole package. They got the big names. They got, good coaching, but the other side has Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. So I don't know. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
Cody, if I could just say one thing, just going off of Rob there, where they're going to try and attack, which I can if I can try to guess, is we're weakest on our run defense. I mean, Pacheco and McKinnon. If McKinnon's healthy, I know he's dealing with 2 ankle injuries. If he's healthy, Andy Reid's going to try and get the run game established, and like he said, take shots down the field. We're horrible on 3rd and short. We're one of the worst teams in the league when stopping the run on 3rd and short. I mean, we allow 51.5% of conversions on 3rd down when it's 2 yards or less. I know that's tough to do. I know it's tough to stop teams on 3rd and short, but we cannot allow them to get a run game going, especially with Andy Reid's playbook and their ability to kind of take shots downfield. We brought in some big heavy hitters in Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh, who can plug up that middle, and we have our 1st-round pick, Jordan Davis, who is an absolute stud. But our run defense is the weakest point of that defense. So I think that's going to be an area that they're going to try and exploit, and hopefully we're ready for it.
And that myself, because Pacheco is actually averaging right at 5 per carry. I think he could potentially be a difference maker. We've seen his use. He had some issues with fumbles there. Weeks like 10 to 13 or 14, and looked like he might be losing some playing time. And then after we got to the playoffs, his usage increased again. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is supposed to return, but I don't think they're really going to play him that much, except for very specific. I expect it to be all McKinnon and Pacheco. I think McKinnon direct here as well after that massive run that he had there in the regular season. I mean, he was scoring like 2 touchdowns a game, kind of quieting down a little bit, but I think we could see him really bounce back as well. And it's almost one of those, Rob, you're talking about how they use players in this offense and how it's so tough to predict. It's almost one of those things where you're like, okay, who's getting the touchdown? Going to draw a couple plays up for Tony. Going to draw a couple up for McKinnon's probably going to get several dump offs. I can see McKinnon with 5 or 6 catches here, and if they actually get something going with Pacheco, I think that could certainly be dangerous. So they're certainly going to try to distribute the wealth. I think a series to series viewpoint, if they are able to cover Kelsey, that makes the difference for them. Just because going to play, the rest of these guys may get the touchdown. With a lot of gadget trick plays, kind of in the red zone, they'll utilize. But there's Tony's targets. If someone could actually get 7, 8, 9 targets in this game out of Kelsey, it's probably going to be McKinnon or Juju. I'm interested to see the Eagles cover them and who can fill that void on a play-by-play basis, not just coming in and getting a one-off play here or there. Still explosive, maybe that's all. So that'll certainly be interesting to watch. But I know we're going to wrap this up shortly. Before we get into score predictions to you guys, is there anything else you wanted to touch on with this game? So Matt, you first. Any closing thoughts? Anything else you wanted to touch on with this matchup?
Nothing that we haven't discussed already. I mean, like we said, it's going to come down to both quarterbacks. We know that the skill position players and the trenches on our side of the ball on the Eagles front is spectacular. They're one of the tops in the leagues. I mean, what could be said more than Jason Kelsey in the run game as well? Like Jason Kelsey is just an all-world player. He's all pro. He comes off it's unheard of that a center pulls off the ball in the run game and they fill that gap with a running back who's picking up the next blocker. I mean, that's just getting him out in space. He's going to be a difference maker, whether it's in the run game or the pass game, calling out coverages. Look for him to, assert his dominance, the all-pro that he is. He's going to make this first Super Bowl of Jalen Hurts very comfortable and easy, and especially if, it's jitters when you're first out there. I mean, we know Jalen Hurts has played in the bright lights before. He's played in national championship games. He's played in the college football playoffs. But it's a different animal when it's a Super Bowl. And you're going to need your veteran players there to kind of calm down all those new players because, sometimes you get a little ahead of yourself. You have those jitters, you have those butterflies. You want to see the veteran players who have been there before kind of get these guys into motion and just tell them to play their game, have an all confidence level and, fire on all cylinders.
Yeah, there's a lot of experience.
Yeah, I think
how often we see that, but Rob, you go ahead.
Yeah, like you said, there's a lot of experience here. I think this is gonna be one of the better Super Bowls we've seen. I just think there's so much firepower on both sides of the ball for both teams. I think obviously the Eagles, as I've mentioned it a couple times on this podcast alone, that they have more talent across the board. But when you have a guy like Mahomes throwing the ball, you just never know what they're capable of, and especially with Andy Reid calling the plays. And I think Matt made a really good point that if Pacheco gets going, I think the Eagles are going to have some struggles because that just opens up the entire playbook for Andy Reid, and that's like Christmas morning for a guy like that. So that's something I'll definitely be looking out for early. But I think it's just going to be a hard-nosed game. I think, like I said, I think it's going to be very similar to what we saw 2 weeks ago with the Chiefs and the Bengals, and I'm actually going to go with a very similar prediction. I'm going to take the Eagles. I just think they're rolling this year. I think they're going to get the job done. They're going to finish the job. And I hope I don't jinx you, Matt, because I was 0 for 2 weeks ago. But I think the Eagles are going to take this one, and I'm going to go, I'll say 24-20, Eagles win. And I would argue that they may get that strip sack at the end of the game to seal it. So I like that narrative. I think it's a good one, and I'm gonna go with it. I'm not saying I'm rooting for them, but I think they are the superior team, and I think they'll show that on Sunday.
All right, Matt, give me that score prediction.
I'm going to go 31-24 Eagles. Like Rob was saying, they showed that they were the best team all year. I know that you can, argument about the schedule. You can argue about the easy road to the Super Bowl with playing Daniel Jones and Brock Purdy and Josh Johnson. But we saw Tom Brady have to go through Tim Tebow and Blake Bortles. There was an easy road there too. It's putting yourself in position all year long. They got the number 1 seed. They got home field advantage. They took care of what they're supposed to do. They're in the biggest game, and they've been the best team all year. And they're showing the confidence that they're gonna finish this season. They wanted to win the Super Bowl from game 1. You heard Jalen Hurts that he's starving for this shit. Well, he's gonna go and get it. So go out and get it. Go out and get it because I know that you have a lot to prove. He was a great college player, but kind of towards the end, especially getting benched in that national championship game. And then when he was at Oklahoma, getting kind of, thrown out there in the college football playoff and not really performing the way he did. The confidence and the grit in this kid is unbelievable. And that's what you want to see in your franchise quarterback. So go and get one. Prove to all these people that you're the franchise quarterback, that Eagles Nation knows you are, that you're a top quarterback in this league. And sooner or later, you're going to be in the discussion with the Burrows, the Allens, the Mahomes, and all these next generation of quarterbacks.
Hurts is going to go down as one of the best draft picks as long as he just incredible. But he's really just been impressive. I think the adversity he's faced and the mentality he has is second to none. You want what a after that mentality and just work. I think the majority of players in his situation out of the league, they're not well. It gets in their head. It's whatever their path would have been or whatever his could have been. It wasn't. He just kind of kept. See on the other, there's Mahomes. He's uber talented. Probably one of the most talented quarterbacks we'll ever see. Historically talented. Record. As time as I'm having going up against the Eagles, it's just a gut.
34-30 call here with the Chiefs.
Obviously,
I think
Rob and I, we really have no dog in this fight, so we're just looking towards some good football, honestly. Whatever it is, I hope it's just a phenomenal game, one of those that comes down the last couple drives. I think we all believe that it will. We got some calls here for a strip sack, but fellas, I hope you enjoy the game. Matt, good luck to your Philadelphia Eagles, man. It's been fun listening to you this year. It's been fun having you on the podcast throughout the playoffs. I think you've brought them some good luck. I always say that. Really, just more of a shout out, but it's all you, man.
This would be second year in a row. Be a second year in a row that a roster up team would win the Super Bowl. So we don't have a Chiefs up, but we do have an Eagle up. So we'll see if the trend continues.
Unfortunately, our Rams podcast jinxed them. It went the other way. after the Super Bowl and in the Rams won 5 games. So Shover jinxed them. We just got all ranges. Rob, I'm gonna get you guys out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on. You know where you can find them at. Matt, you can find him at RobW20. Check us out at rosterupmedia.com and at rosterupmedia social handles. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for listening. This will all platforms.